around the world, what's the current state of connection as it relates to the workforce? And before we go any further, I think it's really important to underscore the following, which is this, that connection is not static. You're either drawing closer or apart. There is no in between. So today, moving forward, you will do actions. Specifically as leaders, you will have actions. There will be behaviors that you put to work on a day-to-day basis that will actively pull you closer to your team, making you a stronger unit, or that will pull you apart. There's never an in-between. Same goes with community members, family members, etc. And it's also important to note the following. Most audiences find this to be very eye-opening because we're thinking about this wrong. And that's around loneliness. Loneliness is not the absence of people, but rather it's the absence of connection. We're getting this wrong. And so take the folks on the screen as an example. They're with other people, but because they're not actually connected, they're not building connection with one another, they can still feel a sense of disconnection, isolation, aloneness or loneliness. Same is true for you in this room. Even though you're with other people, if you're not actively forging those connections and maintaining connections, you can feel detached and isolated. And on the other side is true as well. So if you have team members that work remotely, if they have strong connections with the folks that they're working with on a day-to-day basis, they can feel a greater sense of connection to the organization and to their team members than folks that are in this room or like the folks that are on the screen that actually are among other people. So here's a really a poignant quote to kind of further underscore what we're talking about here. And I love this quote by the late actor and comedian Robin Williams, who once stated the following. He said, "I used to think the worst thing in life was to end up all alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up around people who make you feel all alone." So many of our clients around the world think, oh gosh, we feel like our teams are disjointed and disconnected and underperforming. Let's just get them together in the same place. And that's part of a solution. But if we're not more intentional in that solution, it can almost exasperate the problem, right? If a team member is showing up feeling very detached from the organization, and they show up and they start and they're amongst their team members, and they begin to feel even more detached. So again, it can exasperate the problem, and I love this powerful quote by Robin Williams. And again, keeping this in mind, I think it's important for all of us to make the following statement true, and that is that we never make someone feel alone, especially when you're with them, especially if they're on your team. We are so bullish, our team and our organization, so bullish about tackling connection in the context of work, because this is where you and I spend most of our waking hours. So what a great place to try to find more opportunities for connection. All right, so again, we're talking about the state of connection. So let me take a step back and tell you a little bit about the research that we did. We spent over 5 years unpacking this topic around connection. We surveyed over 2,000 global workers, so I'll share a little bit of that research with you. We worked with 50 leaders really closely to figure out how are they creating cultures of connection. And then at this point, we've worked with hundreds of organizations creating those cultures of connections in order to create stronger cross-generational teams. So here's the state of connection. Here's the research, what we found. 72% of global workers feel disconnected at least monthly, with 55% saying at least weekly. 69% of employees aren't satisfied with the opportunities for connection in their workplace. 79% of Gen Z report sometimes or always feeling lonely, which is the most of any generation. This was the genesis of why we started to look at connection, was how high of a disconnection rate Gen Z has. And at this point, they're still most acute amongst Gen Z, but it's not that by that much more. It turns out every generation is experiencing more disconnection than ever. And then lastly, 3 in 5 employees say their leaders aren't doing a good job promoting or discussing connection. So we really see the full story here, right? That we're more disconnected than ever before. We're turning towards our places of work and our employer to actually fulfill more of this connection craving that you and I have. And then it turns out that leaders and organizations are just ill-equipped to actually deliver on this heightened appetite for connection. Now, here's what makes this topic even more challenging is the following data point. And that is that 90% of employees suffering from isolation or disconnection say they would not tell their supervisor. So if you're in the audience and you're thinking, this is an interesting topic, but I don't think it pertains to me because I've never heard a team member talk about this. And that's because you won't hear it because they're not talking about it. So if you're that individual that's thinking that way, I want you to rethink that. I want you to turn the tables and start from the assumption that everyone on your team is looking for more ways to connect, because it's just that important. So I find it ironic, if we're thinking about all of those data points, that we're not finding company at our company, right? Where you and I spend most of our waking hours, what an opportunity to find more connection